My son-in-law said it the way a man announces a minor schedule change. Casual. Final. Like it had already been decided before I walked through the door. I had driven 40 minutes in the rain to be there. My daughter had called that morning, said they were redoing the living room, and could I come help move a few pieces of furniture. I told her I'd bring lunch. Stopped at the deli where she used to get turkey sandwiches every Friday when she was in high school. I still remembered what she liked. Extra mustard, no onions. I was carrying the bag up the front steps when he opened the door before I could knock. "We actually got it handled," he said. "No hello. No thank you for coming. The guys from the furniture place did it this morning." I stood there on the step, bag in hand, rain still dripping off my jacket. "Your daughter's resting," he said. "She's been tired. We're going to keep it quiet today." He smiled when he said it. The kind of smile that means the opposite of what a smile is supposed to mean. I heard her voice from somewhere inside the house. Not words, just the sound of her moving around. She wasn't resting. She was right there. He didn't open the door any wider. I said, "Okay." I turned around and walked back to the car. I sat for a moment with the deli bag on the passenger seat and the windows fogging up from the rain, and I couldn't tell you exactly what I felt first. Something like confusion, something like embarrassment, something that I didn't have a name for yet but would start making sense over the next 48 hours in ways I was not prepared for. I am 63 years old. I spent 31 years working in contract management for a regional logistics company. I know how to read language. I know what people mean when they choose certain words and leave out certain others. I know the difference between a scheduling conflict and a closed door. That afternoon, sitting in my car in my daughter's driveway, I told myself I was reading it wrong. I drove home. I put the sandwiches in the refrigerator. I called my daughter that evening and she picked up on the third ring. "Dad, I'm sorry about today," she said. "It just got complicated." "Are you doing okay?" I asked. "I'm fine," she said. "He's just protective." I turned the word over a few times. Protective of what? I wanted to ask, but I didn't. I said goodnight and set the phone down. I am a man who spent the better part of his life not asking that question. She called 3 days later. Not to chat, not to apologize again. She called because she needed something. Her voice had that particular efficiency it gets when she's asking for a favor and doesn't want to spend too much time getting there. "Dad, I need you to do something for me. Just go online and add Clifton to the secondary account, the one Grandma left. He's going to help manage some things." I was at the kitchen table when she called. I had my coffee in front of me. I had just opened the newspaper. The ordinary morning kind of moment that you remember later because of what interrupts it. "Which account?" I asked. "The trust account," she said, "from when Mom passed." I went very still. My wife had died 4 years ago. Pancreatic cancer, 11 months from diagnosis to the end. Before she died, she made sure everything was in order. She was that kind of woman. Careful, thorough, deliberate. The trust she set up was for our daughter, for her future, for whatever she might need when we weren't around anymore. The account had my name on it as trustee. "Why does Clifton need to be on the account?" I asked. "He's just going to help." It's complicated to explain. He understands this stuff better than either of us. I had met my son-in-law 18 months before this phone call. My daughter had brought him home for Thanksgiving. He was 41, divorced, ran some kind of consulting business he described in different ways depending on who he was talking to. Financial facilitation was the phrase he used once. Another time he said strategic asset management. When I asked him who his clients were, he said he wasn't able to discuss specifics. I hadn't pushed. My daughter was 34, careful and smart in most ways, and happy in a way I hadn't seen her in a while. I told myself that was what mattered. "I'm not going to add anyone to that account," I said. A pause, short but shaped like something. "Dad, it's not a big deal. It's your mother's trust," I said. "I'm not adding a name to it over the phone. Clifton says it's easy. It takes like 5 minutes online." "Clifton can call me," I said, "and explain what he needs and why." She sighed. The kind of sigh that is meant to communicate that I was being difficult, that I didn't understand, that things had moved beyond my ability to follow. I understood perfectly. After we hung up, I sat at the table for a long time with my cold coffee. The newspaper was still open, but I wasn't reading it. I was thinking about the morning on the front step, about the door that didn't open any wider, about the word protective and all the things it could mean depending on who was being protected. And from what? I called my attorney the next morning. He's been my attorney for 22 years. He handled my wife's estate. He set up the trust. I told him what my daughter had asked me to do, and I heard the brief pause that means he is choosing his words carefully. "Don't touch that account," he said. "Don't add any names. Don't authorize any access. Don't do anything with it until you talk to me in person." We met that Thursday. He had already pulled the account details. He walked me through what would happen if a secondary name were added, the access it would grant, the transactions it would enable, the oversight it would remove. Does your son-in-law have financial credentials, he asked. He says he does, I said. Do you know what his consulting practice actually does? Not with any clarity, I said. He nodded slowly, which is what he does when he's not surprised. Has your daughter asked you about this account before, he asked. No, I said. She never talked about money with me. Her mother and I raised her not to think of it as hers until it was hers. She knew the trust existed. She didn't ask about amounts. She didn't ask about access until now, he said. Until now, I said. I drove home with a heaviness in my chest that I recognized from the days after my wife died. Not the same grief, but the same texture. The feeling of something solid becoming unreliable. My phone buzzed that evening. A text from my daughter. Dad, please just think about it. He's trying to help us. I read it twice, word us. I wasn't sure what version of us she was using. 2 days later, I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. The display name said Meridian Consulting Group. The subject line read, regarding the Callaway Trust Estate, pending authorization. The email was professional in the way that things are when they are trying to look like something they're not. It referenced the trust by the correct name. It cited an account number that was partially obscured. It said that my daughter had initiated a review and that my cooperation in providing secondary trustee access would allow the process to move forward efficiently. It included a link to a form. I did not click the link. I forwarded it to my attorney. He called within the hour. This is a phishing construct, he said. It's designed to look like a legitimate financial firm. The domain is a look-alike. The form would capture your credentials. Who sent it? I asked. That's what you need to find out, he said, because someone gave them the correct name of the trust and enough of the account number to make this look credible. There were only 3 people who had that information. My attorney, me, and my daughter. I did not sleep well that night. I called my daughter the next morning. She answered on the first ring, which meant she was expecting my call. Did Clifton send me an email? I asked. A pause. Longer this time. He works with a firm that helps with estate access, she said. It's standard process. It's a credential theft attempt, I said. Silence. That's not what it is, she said. Her voice had shifted. Quieter. Less certain. He gave them the name of your mother's trust, I said. He gave them part of the account number. The only way he had that information is if you gave it to him. She didn't answer. Did you show him the trust documents? I asked. He said he needed to understand the structure, she said, so he could help. Something moved through me that wasn't anger, not yet. More like the moment before you understand how far you've fallen. The drop before the landing. I need you to listen to me, I said. Not as someone who is overreacting. As your father who has managed that trust for 4 years. As the man who sat with your mother while she signed every page of that document. She made a sound. Small, like the beginning of tears. I need you to tell me what he told you this money would be used for. She was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was smaller than I had heard it since she was very young. He has a deal, she said, an opportunity. He needs a short-term bridge to close it. He said we'd pay it back in 60 days. A bridge. The word landed in my chest like something dropped from a height. He told you to use your mother's trust as collateral, I said. He said it was just temporary, she said. He said you'd never have to know. The you'd never have to know is the part that stayed with me afterward. Not the scheme itself, as ugly as it was, the assumption that I could be moved around like furniture, kept in the driveway, given a sandwiches and rain version of my daughter while something else happened inside the house. I didn't raise my voice. I am not a man who raises his voice. I'm going to ask you one question, I said, and I need you to answer me honestly. She said, okay. Has he taken any money yet? She started to cry. That was my answer. I ended the call and sat down at the kitchen table. I did not move for a while. I thought about my wife. I thought about the morning she signed the trust documents, how she held the pen with both hands because she was already weak from treatment, how she had made the attorney read every paragraph aloud because she wanted to be certain. She wanted to be absolutely certain our daughter would be protected. I thought about what it meant that the man my daughter married had looked at that protection and seen an opportunity. I called my attorney again, and this time the conversation was different. Not exploratory, decisive. He had the account locked before noon. Full freeze. No access, no transfers, no inquiries processed without my physical presence and dual verification. He filed a formal complaint with the State Financial Regulatory Office citing the phishing email and the unauthorized disclosure of account information. He documented everything in a chain of evidence file that he told me to think of as insurance. What happens to him? I asked. That depends on what your daughter tells investigators, he said. If she cooperates, and if he's done this before, and these people usually have, it becomes a criminal matter. What do you mean, done this before? The email, he said. The template. The Meridian Consulting name. This is not an improvised scheme. This is a practiced one. I sat with that for a moment. How do I talk to my daughter about this? I asked. He was quiet. That wasn't really his department, and we both knew it. That evening she came to my house. I had not invited her, and she had not called ahead. She knocked, and I opened the door, which was different from what her husband had done to me in the rain. I opened it all the way, and I stood aside, and I let her in. She sat at the kitchen table where I had been sitting all week. She looked the way people look when they have been awake for too long, and cried more than they expected to. "He's gone," she said. "What do you mean gone?" "He left this morning. He took his car, his laptop, his passport." She pressed her hands flat on the table. "He's not answering his phone." I sat across from her. "How much?" I asked. She told me. It was not from the trust. He hadn't gotten that far. It was from a joint account they had opened after the wedding. Her savings. Money she had put aside over years of careful living. The number was significant. I did not react the way she expected me to. I didn't tell her I had warned her. I didn't say anything that began with "I told you." I have earned the right to say those things, and I chose not to use it. "Have you called the police?" I asked. She shook her head. "You need to," I said. "Tonight, not tomorrow. I'm embarrassed," she said. "That's not a reason," I said. "That's what people like him count on." She looked at me across the table, her mother's eyes. Same shape, same habit of going very still before something difficult. "He made me feel stupid," she said, "for trusting you. He said you were holding on to money that should have been mine already, that you were controlling, that you didn't respect my choices. I let that sit between us without touching it. Do you believe that?" I asked. She shook her head slowly. "I think I wanted to believe he was the person he said he was, and he told me a story that required you to be the problem." I nodded. We sat there in the kitchen for a long time. The rain had come back outside. Same kind of rain as the morning at her front step. I thought about how that moment felt, standing there with the deli bag. The door that didn't open, the smile that meant something else. "I saved you a sandwich," I said. She looked up. "From that day," I said. "The turkey from the deli. It's still in the refrigerator. I forgot to throw it out." She laughed. It was a broken kind of laugh, the kind that comes out of somewhere you didn't know had been holding itself together, but it was real. More real than anything I had heard in this kitchen in a long time. She filed the police report that night. My attorney connected her with a fraud investigator he trusted. Clifton, it turned out, had a history in 2 other states. Different name variant, similar methodology. He was located 11 days later at a rental in a border city. The case moved into federal hands shortly after, which is where my attorney had predicted it would go. My daughter moved back into her childhood bedroom for 6 weeks while she got her footing. I did not treat her like a patient. I did not hover. I made coffee in the mornings and left it on the counter, and some mornings she was there, and some mornings she wasn't, and both of those things were fine. One evening she asked me about the trust, not the access, not the amount. She asked me what her mother had written in the letter that came with it. I got up and found the letter in the filing cabinet in my office, in the folder where it had lived for 4 years, behind the tax documents and ahead of the insurance policies. I brought it to the table and handed it to her without reading it again myself. She needed to receive it fresh, without me inside it. She read it quietly. I don't know what it said. My wife wrote it privately, and I respected that. When she finished, my daughter folded it back along the original creases and held it for a moment without speaking. "She knew you'd keep it safe," she said finally. "She knew I'd try," I said. "That's the part I come back to when I think about all of it. Not the fraud investigation, not the locked account, the federal case, the frozen assets, the weeks of documentation and phone calls and certified letters. Not the morning in the rain or the closed door or the sandwich I forgot to throw out. I come back to the fact that my wife signed those pages with hands that were already failing, and she trusted me to stand between our daughter and whatever came next. She didn't ask me if I was strong enough. She already knew the answer. There are men who measure their lives by what they've built. The house, the career, the retirement account, the legacy. I used to be that kind of man. I'm not sure I am anymore. I think I measure it differently now. I measure it by whether I opened the door when she knocked, whether I sat across the table instead of above it, whether I kept the sandwich, even when I had no reason to think she'd ever come back for it. She has her own apartment now, 3 miles from here. She calls most Sundays. Not every Sunday, but most. We don't talk about him. We don't need to. Last week she brought me a pie from the bakery near her office. She set it on the counter without ceremony and said, "You look thin last time." I wasn't thin. She just needed a reason to bring the pie. I didn't say that. I said thank you, and I got out toast plates and sat at the kitchen table together in the kind of quiet that doesn't need to be filled. That's enough. For a man my age, that's more than enough.